Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again for another round of Saturday morning stories. Now, I might sound a little bit different to normal. I just can't shake this cold or flu or whatever it was. I've still got a bit of a runny nose and my voice sounds a bit gruff. It might be due to the very bad pollution we had several weeks ago. I'm happy to report that it's all cleared up now. We've got very good levels of air even here in Bangkok. So I'll try and get through this as best as I can. On a lighter note, I went down to Pattaya a few weeks ago and I bought some of these colourful tropical shirts. Now, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I don't upset the fashion police because I know they monitor my channel quite often just to make sure I'm wearing the right attire. Okay, right, all humour aside, let me talk about these 6 stories. So the first 2 stories, they weren't sent in to me. They're actually news stories, but I think they're very relevant on this channel because it's the sort of things that can go wrong when you come out here to Southeast Asia. The first one is taking place in the Philippines. It's an horrific story. The second one takes place in Thailand. You might have heard that story on. It's very. It's been read out. It's been told on all the Thai news channels, the English-speaking channels here in Thailand. You might have heard it. You can always skip forward to the next one. There are timestamps in the description. Okay, so I'm going to crack on and get straight into this first horrible story. And just if you haven't been out here, it's not all bad news. It's a great place to be, Southeast Asia, but things can go wrong like this.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I was a high-flying HR boss. Now I'm homeless in the Philippine jungle and fighting for life with a rotten foot. Brit's life unravels after being stabbed by his girlfriend, infected with mpox and lured into a botched exorcism as he begs the UK for help. A British man stranded in the Philippines claims he is waiting to die after his life took an horrific turn, leaving him with a rotten leg, no visa and no way home. Conan, White, 60, has been left in unimaginable agony, his foot mangled beyond belief after a botched medical procedure, a failed witch doctor's exorcism and years of neglect. His harrowing descent into the nightmare began when he uprooted his life to move to the Southeast Asian country in 2018 for love, only to be stabbed by his girlfriend and abandoned in the slums. Now penniless, immobile and starving, Conan says he is trapped in a jungle held like a prisoner by locals who control the only key to the gate. With his funds nearly depleted and his health rapidly deteriorating, he fears he is only days away from death. This is reality now. The project that is me is almost over, he said. The desperate Brit told the Mail Online about the hellish experience of living and surviving in the Philippine wilderness after setting up a crucial fundraiser he hopes may just save his life. Conan, eager to return to what was once his home in Newbury, Berkshire, UK, is now begging the British Embassy to rescue him from his nightmare as he battles living in a jungle located a 17-hour ferry ride away from civilization with a decaying foot. The Foreign Office has informed Mail Online they are aware of his plight. The expatriate moved to the Philippines in 2018 after meeting a woman on a Christian dating app, excited to begin his new life. He gave up his job as a HR officer at Hinduja Global Solutions to start what he thought would be a fresh start in the paradise Southeast Asian country. But his world quickly came crashing down when he realized he had made a dangerous mistake falling for a woman he claims was involved in a dubious business and had abandoned her child. After spending around 5 years with his then girlfriend and even taking her in her 9-year-old son from the hands of her sister, she would go on to stab him in May 2022. He said the relationship was flawed and the vicious attack is what led him to his first encounter with the Philippines police. The Brit recalled laying on a bed in their shared home after they had broken up before she launched the unprovoked assault on him. I was on the bed and the next thing I knew, she was attacking me, fighting me, slapping me, and then she stabbed me in the foot. She stabbed me twice. I have no idea with what. He said he retreated in a panic, hobbling down the stairs and leaving a trail of blood behind him, which her traumatized son managed to snap a grisly photo of. Conan rushed to the police only to be told they would not investigate unless he paid a bribe. Alone and injured, he was forced to patch himself up and flee to the slums of Cebu. Following the bloody assault, Conan was forced to live in a rat-infested squalor where he came face to face with disease-ridden vermin the size of cats and shared a communal bathroom with cobras. Images shared by Conan of the Cebu slums revealed the beginnings of his tragic journey from home comforts to desperate measures. His bed, merely 2 wooden pallets topped with a single dirty duvet and a torn pillow, was where Conan attempted to rest and recover from his violent stabbing. The toilet was shared by a dozen other poverty-stricken Filipinos and was surrounded by large, grimy waste bins. His £1.40 per night accommodations were little more than a filthy, crumbling shack. There, Conan was bitten by a rat and contracted mpox, but although it seemed as if the Brit had hit rock bottom, his suffering was far from over. In the summer of 2023, Conan took a catastrophic fall down a freeway after just having recovered from COVID-19 and mpox, saying his immune system was at its weakest. It was during the incident that Conan's foot was left shattered, forcing him to seek treatment at a private clinic where he claims a doctor deliberately butchered his limb to extort even more money from him. Locals confirmed to me that I shouldn't have gone there and that it was a charlatan that will hack your foot apart, he said. Days later, a water burst in his home sent him tumbling down the stairs again, worsening his injuries. His foot became twisted, mangled, and oozing with infection. The man soon began experiencing a fever so severe he had to take antibiotics and use medications that were not working. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but I was probably dying at this point. I was in a complete state. I could barely speak. I could barely move. I couldn't hold my food down. Conan's then girlfriend, who was located in Malaysia and had grown increasingly concerned for his well-being, said he immediately needed to go to the hospital. Her brothers took an 8-hour ferry from Mindanao to Cebu to bring him back to the Philippine Islands so he could be seen at the city hospital. But when you go to the hospital where you don't get much help, Conan said, you have to have someone with you. You have to have help. They have to stay with you in hospital and sleep in the chair next to you. They're the ones who dress your wounds and get your medicines. The nurses don't do anything. When he arrived back home, he quickly realized his foot was not in any better state and he was again rushed to the hospital. Conan claims that doctors did not look at his wound and instead charged him a heavy consultation fee and prescribed a course of antibiotics. Not able to return home and care for himself, the desperate and sick man went to stay with his girlfriend's mother, where in a horrid turn of events, he was left bedridden for a year due to her neglect. It was a horrible time. It's very traumatizing, Conan said. My leg was continually infected. It was on the verge of gangrene and I realized I needed to go into hospital, but the mother kept telling me that if I went to hospital, they would chop my leg off. She insisted to Conan that they would not offer any treatment and would jump straight into amputation, which left him fearing for his life. Conan claims the mother gave him another choice. However, she said, if you stay here, I'll look after you. Give me your money. Desperate for aid, Conan followed her demands and was from then on taking care of his girlfriend's mother. But his foot would never fully recover. The mother took Conan off his diabetic medicine and antibiotics, instead using herbal remedies to try and fix his severe ailments. She had invited priests to the house to bless his foot in candlelight vigils, and at one point had even invited a female witch doctor to the property who massaged his back before spitting continuously to try and get rid of the evil spirits. But Conan put up with the attempts to perform magic and ritual medicine, and he was so terrified of stepping foot into a hospital. I was becoming so delirious. It was horrible, Conan said. The mother didn't speak English. No one around me spoke English. I was just left in a back room and I was by myself all the time. In the end, he claims those around him believed he was on the brink of death, and so he was rushed to hospital where he spent 6 weeks in agony. In 2024, Conan underwent an operation to try and fix his severely injured foot after refusing to sign paperwork that would permit surgery to cut off his limb. But in just a few days, he was dumped back at his former caretaker's home, stitched up, but still rotten from the inside. He knew he hadn't fully recovered after noticing a gaping hole in the bottom of his foot below his 36 stitches. Hungry, exhausted, and desperate for medicine, Conan was fed a supposedly magic concoction using the island's coconut flour, which the mother paid £10 for to a man who sliced it down from a special tree. The concoction was also rubbed into the deep wounds on Conan's foot, as he was promised this practice would heal him. But after being confined to his bed for an entire year, he is still awaiting the miracle. In January of this year, Conan was moved into a tiny crumbling hut deep into the isolated jungles. The small shed-like outhouse is located within a community that has no more than 100 people and 20 buildings, and to this day he is mostly unable to walk and feels like a prisoner with no financial resources to get him back home. People here don't speak English and I don't speak Filipino, so I've been isolated here for over a year. And I've recently come to know my girlfriend from Malaysia has gotten a new boyfriend. Conan eats just one meal a day, usually consisting of a thin watery stew of tuna and crackers, which costs him just 42p, or about 50 cents. He has no other options, with the little money he has managed to preserve rapidly drying up. The wooden shack he calls home is seen in images surrounded by thick jungle shrubbery and is guarded by at least 6 dogs. The people who run this place have the key to the gate to get in and won't give it to me, and they won't tell me why. According to Conan, he is now a prisoner in the jungle, left with nothing but his thoughts as company. He believes the locals are keeping him locked in for his money. They claim he is too sick to leave. To escape the hidden shack, Conan must cross a rickety bamboo bridge that crosses over a river filled with snakes and sharp rubble. It is even feared by locals for being so dangerously unstable. The bamboo handle shakes and creaks when you walk across it. It's muddy and bad, then you go up about 100 feet and it's broken concrete and jutting stones. The mother lives on the other side of the bridge. Now almost completely out of money and becoming increasingly prone to infections due to his health and wounds, Conan believes the project that is me is almost over. A week ago, Conan reached breaking point and contacted the British Embassy in a last-ditch attempt to save himself, but to no avail. He claims they have been useless. After having continuous back and forth but reaching no solution, they basically sent him lots of links and loads of documents, but they don't do any good. They're bizarre. But don't worry, you'll be okay. However, Conan simply cannot believe this to be true. Without money and the ability to walk or communicate with those around him, he feels hopeless and trapped in an inescapable prison while on the brink of death. There's a list of things I've got to do. I've got to go to various departments, follow various paperwork, but I'm in the middle of the jungle, miles away from anything, with no money and no ability to walk. I mean, what's the point? It just feels like I'm prolonging life to die, he said. Desperate to find a way back to some kind of civilization, he has even approached the police to try and get himself arrested and taken to a deportation centre. He admitted he overstayed his visa after his ex-girlfriend allegedly lied to him about there being amnesty during the COVID-19 pandemic. But the police had no interest in getting involved without a bribe, and Conan had nothing to give. I feel cursed, and if I'm honest, scared, he said. Conan is now begging the British Embassy to send him help before it's too late, claiming he is just days away from losing internet connection. He said he has been responsible with money all his life and cash reserves while in the Philippines, and that he had endured great hardship, but when the embassy became a last resort, they weren't there for me. He said an FCDO spokesman told Mail Online, "We're providing consular assistance to a British national in the Philippines and are in contact with the local authorities." Conan has now started a crowdsourcing donation page as a last-ditch attempt to fund what he believes may be the last weeks of his life. Realistically, I can live on about £200 a month. It would be pretty basic, but it wouldn't be too bad. But when you haven't got any money, you're screwed, he said. I do hope the crowdsourcing will get me enough money to survive and also get me to my home in England. quite a horrific story there. I'm actually, if I remember, I've got a link to his GoFunding page. I haven't gone and looked at it, but there's a link. There was a link there, so I'll try and put that in the description if you're interested in helping the guy out. But what a terrible! How can you? It just amazes me how deep it's gone. You know, I mean, in the very early stages, surely, I don't know. It just seems crazy that he couldn't have done something more at the beginning. He slipped down a very slippery slope to the point now where he can't get himself out of this situation. If he'd tried to do something right at the beginning, maybe he would have had a better chance. But an absolute terrible story. And he's right about the British Embassy. I remember years ago when I worked for a while, about 6 months, I worked in a country. It was called Zaire in the Congo. I believe it's had a name change now. And I was arrested for something I didn't do. I was with some other guys. There were Lebanese guys, diamond mines and all that sort of thing. I used to go drinking with them. And because I was with them, I got picked up with them and beaten up and taken to the police station. And I didn't receive any help at the time from the British Embassy in what was then Zaire, so I can quite believe where he's coming from. But an utterly terrible story. Okay, now look, the second story is also, it's not quite as bad as that, but this is something that's happened just last week here in Thailand. And again, it's another warning of things that can happen to you unexpectedly here in Southeast Asia and even in Thailand. Now, this happened to a couple, as I say, just last week. The story comes from many news sources here in Thailand, but I thought it would be interesting to anybody who hasn't heard the story about this couple, what's happened to them. And if you have heard this story and you don't want to hear it again, as I said at the beginning, just skip forward. There is timestamps in the description, okay? A British couple who retired to Thailand where they fell victim to a savage beating fear they're about to be jailed despite the attack being caught on CCTV. Des and Mary Burns packed up their lives in Middlesbrough to relocate to the tropical paradise in 2020 and used their savings to build a villa on the Thai Riviera. But they soon found themselves at the centre of a dispute over land access. In December 2023, the pair heard a commotion in the garden where they found a couple, both in their 40s, super fit and trained in Thai boxing, ripping up their plants. The Burns confronted them and ordered them to leave when the man, believed to be from the UK, and his Thai partner launched a frenzied attack on them. Mr. Burns says he was knocked out cold and his assailant continued to rain blows down on him while he was on the floor. He was struck a total of 22 times. The Thai woman turned her attention to Mrs. Burns and began punching and kicking her until she fell into a flower bed, where she appears to have been stomped on. The Burns suffered horrific injuries and the attack has left Mrs. Burns with reduced heart function. The couple say their attackers were arrested in May last year and first denied the charges before reportedly changing their plea to guilty in August. The Burns said the couple were ordered to pay compensation and thought the issue had been resolved. But to the couple's horror, 15 police officers suddenly stormed their home and arrested them on counter charges of causing superficial injuries and mental anguish. Retired chemical engineer Mr. Burns 77 and retired nurse Mrs. Burns 69 now face court on Wednesday. They have been warned that the likely outcome is that they will be sent to prison. The pair has spent every penny trying to clear their names and has even sold their villa in the resort city of Hua Hin. Mrs. Burns said, "All we want is to come home, but we are trapped here. We are prisoners and no one seems to be able to help us. It's like a living hell because it is clear to anyone we are the victims in this and somehow we are going to be brought in front of a court. It's a very frightening situation." She said the police were not interested after we were attacked. "We tried to file a report, but at first they didn't accept our complaint. In July last year, the Burns were summoned to court and told they were being prosecuted over the attack. Family at home have been campaigning ever since for intervention from the British government, first appealing to David Cameron and then his Labour successor in the Foreign Office, David Lammy. But so far nothing has been done that might help the Burns and they fear incarceration in a Thai prison. Mrs. Burns' brother, Tim, said they desperately need help and were appealing to David Lammy to urgently intervene. They have been the victims of an absolute vicious assault and now they find themselves at the very real risk of being sent to jail over it. If nothing is done, we are looking at a terrible miscarriage of justice against two good people who have done nothing wrong whatsoever but have seen their lives ruined. So, I mean, if they're relying on David Lammy, if you're not from the UK, David Lammy, we've had a new government in. He's one of the most useless politicians you'll ever come across. But it's one of these things that can happen in Thailand. You know, the police can arrest one set of people and then it suddenly goes the other way. And I don't want to spell it out here because I live in Thailand, but you can read between the lines and guess why they maybe go from arresting these guys and then move over to shift their attentions to somebody else. It does happen. Very, very unlucky. You know, they come out here to Thailand to settle down in the beautiful city of Hua Hin, which I know well, and they've had to sell their house. There's probably a conclusion to this now, or not a conclusion, but at the time of reading this, they'll have just gone to court, so maybe you can look it up on Google and find out what's happened. I haven't actually followed it up. Okay, so we're going to get back into, I'm going to go into story 3 now, and I'm back into viewer stories. These are stories that have been sent in, and they're all brand new stories. None of these have been read out on my channel before, and as I always say, if you've heard them elsewhere, I can't go and check every single YouTube channel to see if a story's been read out that's been read out here, but they are brand new to me. Okay, in January 2025, my friend Thomas accompanied me on a month-long trip to Thailand. He came there with me once before in 2022. I'm retired and I come to Thailand each year, usually in January. This January was my 10th trip there. When travelling with Thomas, it is always an adventure. Interesting things seem to happen to him. Some are his fault, as he is somewhat of a newbie to Thailand, and some happen even when he is doing things properly. Prior to and during our trip in 2022, I was advising him about things to be careful of. One thing I emphasised was to never agree to the purchase of goods or services unless he completely understood what he was paying for and what the price was. I specifically told him not to nod and smile when he did not understand. One evening in Chiang Mai, we met at a restaurant in the northeast quadrant of the old city. Thomas did not want to eat as he had eaten earlier, but I had not. I ordered a mild curry and a beer. The waiter said something to Thomas in Thai which neither of us understood. Thomas grinned at the waiter and slightly nodded his head politely. When my curry came, there were 2 bowls, mine and one for Thomas. Thomas told the waiter he did not order any food. The waiter insisted that he take the curry and the manager came and also insisted. Thomas was not happy but did not make a scene. In most Thai restaurants, if there is a mistake on an order, the waiter staff has the cost deducted from their salary. These poor folk work so hard for little pay, so it is devastating to them when there is a deduction from their salary. I explained again to Thomas that his smile and his nod of his head when he did not understand is what caused the situation. On the recent trip in January, another interesting situation happened. This one had a lot more positive ending, even though it started out badly. We arrived at Suvarnabhumi Airport from Texas a little before midnight on the 8th of January. By the time we cleared immigration, collected our luggage and walked through customs, it was about 1 a.m. in the morning of the 9th of January. As the rail link train stops at midnight, a taxi was our best choice to go to our hotel just off of Sukhumvit, Soi 15. We got a taxi ticket and went to the stall number 30 and our driver loaded our suitcase into the taxi. Although the drivers from the airport have gotten much better over the years at using the meter, I guess he took me for a newbie. He said the fare to our hotel would be 1,300 baht. 700 baht for the ride, plus 200 baht for the airport fee, plus 200 baht for tolls, plus 100 baht for each large suitcase, for a total of 1,300 baht, approximately $40. I told him, no, use the meter. He said the meter was broken and the fare was 1,300 baht. I told him to let us out and open my door to get out. He then said, okay, meter. I told him the airport charge was 50 baht, not 200, and that there was no charge for the luggage and that I would pay the tolls and for him not to add them to our bill when we arrived. He reluctantly agreed. The meter showed 350 baht when we arrived, to which he added the 50 baht airport fee for a total of 400 baht. I did add a small tip, but it was less than I would have given if he had been honest from the start. That was only the beginning of our early morning adventure. We walked to the desk at the hotel and I handed my passport and printout of my Agoda booking, and in less than 3 minutes I was given back my passport and my key to the room. Thomas then handed the clerk his passport and a Golda printout. Just in case you wonder what a Golda is, guys, if you haven't used it, it's an online booking site that's very popular here in Thailand. The clerk shuffled through some papers, looking puzzled. He said, "We don't have your reservation." Thomas reminded him that he had the Golda confirmation. The clerk went to the back office and in a few minutes came out with a paper showing that the reservation had been cancelled about 7 p.m. Now it was close to 2 a.m. Thomas explained that we were on a plane at 7 p.m. and that he did not cancel the reservation. The clerk said he was sorry, but they were fully booked and there was no other rooms to give him. I suspect that because the hotel was fully booked, someone walked in, needed a room at 7, and the hotel could charge him more than what Thomas was paying, so the hotel cancelled his reservation. I said that since it was so late, we could check in with nearby hotels for a room, as there were at least 4 hotels in the same block. We put my luggage in my room and started down the street. At the first hotel, they said they were full. At the second hotel, they were also full. At the third hotel, they had a room normally about 1,200 baht, but they wanted 5,000 baht for one night. At the fourth hotel, they also wanted an outrageous price because they could see his options were limited. I told Thomas, "Look, for one night, you can stay in my room with me and we will sort this out tomorrow morning." When we got back to my hotel, there had been a shift change and now a girl was working the front desk. Thomas said he was going to check with her. He explained the situation and hoped she could help him. She too said they were fully booked, but that she had a friend that worked at a hotel about 2 blocks away. She gave her friend a call and they talked for about 5 minutes. She told Thomas that the security guard was going to walk him to the friend's hotel. I told him that if things did not work out, come back to my room for the night. It was now about 3 a.m. and I went to my room, unpacked, showered and crawled into bed exhausted. I did not hear from Thomas that night. About 10 a.m. Thomas messaged me to meet him at a local coffee stall on the corner of Sukhumvit Soi 21. We got coffee and there and Thomas told me what transpired after we parted at 3 a.m. When Thomas arrived at the little hotel, the girl who was the friend of the girl at my hotel told him that the only room they had left was the most expensive room in the hotel, but at 11 a.m. there would be an inexpensive room that could be available for 4 days that he could have. She said that if he would not mess up the expensive room, he could go there and shower if he used only one towel and could sleep on the top of the bedspread so they would not have to change the bed linens. She said that if he would do this and not mess the room up, he could stay there until 11 for no charge. Really a pretty good deal given the circumstances, but it gets better. Thomas accepted her offer and told the girl that she should accompany him to the room to be sure he didn't mess it up. She did. They showered together and messed up the bed together, but there was still no charge. She contacted the maid service to clean the room at 10:30. When he finished our coffee, Thomas went back to the hotel to move to his new room. Although I never seem to have such luck, often if you just go with the flow, a bad situation can turn into a good one. So sometimes people write to me and say, "Do you believe all these stories that are sent to you?" And I give a standard answer. I always say, "Look, I don't judge or condemn. I just read them out." Unless they're really silly, like the guy who said he was sitting in Asok and he spotted a UFO, something ridiculous like that, or he was chased halfway down Sukhumvit by half a dozen ladyboys. The really silly ones, I just don't read out. Okay, into story number 4. Hi again, Peter. I think this is my 5th or 6th story for you. I was in Phuket 2 years ago with a business friend. It was only a 4-night trip arranged for us. I was trying to make a good impression, so I was keeping my nighttime activities to myself. We were dining in nice places and not really getting involved with the girls or visiting the bars. We were staying at a famous brand hotel that everyone knows. Anyway, through a dating app, I had arranged for a ladyboy to visit me late at night. My friend and I had actually had a great night out and had bonded better than ever. He was staying about 6 doors away from me, so I didn't think it would be a big deal to have a late night visitor. That is what I thought. The ladyboy in question arrived late. I was almost asleep after drinking a few bottles of wine and some whiskey with my colleague when she arrived. I was groggy and sleepy. We did the business and I was rather infatuated with her, so I flippantly said, "Come back anytime you want." She left, and that was that. The next night was our final night out before we returned home the next day. It was a good night, and we had visited many bars enjoying the scene. We were much more relaxed now, with each other I mean. We both said good night and went to bed. However, around 4 in the morning, there was a knock on my door. I sat up and stared at the door, unsure of who it was. Another knock, then the sound of the ladyboy from the previous night. She was saying, "I come back, I come back." I froze because I did not want her to come in at all. In fact, I wanted her to leave. The opposite happened. She started banging on the door like a maniac and screaming for me to let her in. Then she began throwing herself against the door, shouting, swearing words louder and louder. I was frozen to the bed, not sure what to do. I quietly called the operator on the phone and whispered that there was someone trying to get into my room by mistake and that I did not want to confront them. After one final charge at my door and a scream, it suddenly went quiet. I will never know if my colleague knew what had happened because neither of us mentioned it, but he was close enough to hear and see, as were many other people. I did not really make eye contact at breakfast with the other guests. One thing that made me think was, why did she go crazy and try to barge the door in? For all she knew, I was no longer in that room, or I had not even come back from a night out. Well, it's pretty simple, really, isn't it? Because if you weren't in the room and somebody else come to the door, she would have just said, "Sorry, wrong room." But if you had have answered it, it's more money for her, isn't it? But you know, if you're going to sleep with ladyboys and you've got friends down the hall, you're going to expect that they'll find out about it. Right, okay, 2 more stories to go, quite short ones, I believe. This is story number 5. I have been a long-time fan of Thailand Bound. I especially enjoyed the stories of Leanne and Om, episode 145, and the couple in episode 160, which always breaks my heart. Let me tell you my own story, which is not about Thailand or even a Thai girl, but a girl in similar circumstances. For the sake of this story, we'll call her Ping. She is a lovely 40-year-old woman from somewhere in rural China. I met her working in a massage shop here in the US. She doesn't speak a word of English. We have tried to communicate through Google Translate, which is problematic at best. Through several conversations, I have been able to determine that she is divorced, has a grown child, and her ex-husband left her with a $200,000 in debt. She has come to the US to work to pay off this debt. Her circumstances are dire. She even lives in the massage shop. She has no friends or family in this country. She has minimal wardrobe, nor will spend any money for anything other than basic necessities. Everything she makes goes towards the debt. She works 7 days a week, 13 hours a day in that seedy parlour. Peter, if it had not been for stories I heard on your site, I might not have believed nor understood her situation. I hope that I have learnt enough for my story not to be another crash and burn. I also hope that I don't have white knight syndrome because I have truly fallen for this Asian girl. This isn't necessarily a story for broadcast. I just wanted you to know the influence Thailand Bound has had on me. Well, I decided to read it out because it's quite interesting. Anything that people send in to me, if it's interesting for me, if I read it and I think that's quite interesting, then I believe it will be interesting for everybody else, and I'd like to read it out. You know, if you've got a similar story, something that you think is quite interesting, I might find quite interesting, send it in. I'll have a look over it, and perhaps I can read it out here also. Okay, we're going to go into our final story. This is story number 6. It's quite short. I am Fernando, a long-time subscriber who never thought I would be sending a story since I have never been to Thailand. You recently read a Colombia story and said other places are welcome. So here I am in my mid-40s, American, but born and raised in South America. Since I view the US as catastrophic for any relationships and was influenced by a certain bald YouTuber after a first promising experience with a stunning Slovak blonde in Prague, I started looking in Eastern Europe in 2021. Amazed by the number of matches with beautiful women, some were obviously there for the money, some were fakes. But I finally struck gold with Inga. She was from a smaller town. Big cities can be tough. An English teacher for toddlers, polite, slim, responsive, in her late 30s, with an amazing body and clean Instagram. A dream. The only downside was that she was divorced with 2 kids, but at my age, it is very hard to find a woman otherwise. After months of daily affectionate conversations, here I go, we met in Minsk. I booked a good hotel room in the city centre. She showed me around, taught me a little Russian, but at night, no aerobics. She said she wasn't ready, we had just met. At the time, I saw that it was virtuous and kept the thing going. I thought that it was virtuous. Months later, here I go again. Very slow start, poor and weak aerobics. Was it a cultural difference? What was going on? She said I had to be patient and things would slowly develop. She never asked for money, but always kept some of my rubles at the end of every trip. By the third visit, I was meeting her parents. High expectations. Finally, some bedroom action, but still not enthusiastic or at the expected daily amount. However, this time, I was determined to find out the truth. She asked for a phone, and I bought one with special software. Days passed, and I could read all her conversations. She had a younger guy who she exploited for renovations at her place. Poor kid was in love with her, but had no money, so he never stood a chance. I found out he visited her every couple of months when she sent kids to stay with their father. I said nothing to her about what I had discovered. A couple of weeks later, back home in the US, I broke up with her by text. In the end, the lesson for me is that there is no such thing as a traditional wife anymore, outside of maybe very specific small circles. So it just goes to show you guys it happens all over the world, doesn't it? My channel is about Thailand. I don't only read out stories. I do food reviews, hotel reviews, all sorts of different videos. But my mainstay is the stories. And because I'm in Thailand, it's Thailand bound. All the stories are mainly from Thailand. But it just goes to show you that this kind of thing that goes on happens everywhere, all over the world. And the guy who sent me in this story, he actually sent me a picture of himself and the girl who's in the story, a very beautiful woman actually, but unfortunately I can't share it because when people send me photographs, they normally request that I just keep them for myself to view and then get rid of them. Okay, right, very, very longer upload this week. Thanks to the guys who have sent stories. I got through it. Hopefully by next week my voice will be 100% again. And I'll sound normal, okay? But for this time around, thanks for listening again, and I'll catch up with you with some more stories next Saturday. Thanks, guys.